Wealthy Author Podcast, episode number 32, Taking the Fear Out of Personal Finance with Olga Kirshenbaum. Welcome to another episode of the Wealthy Author Podcast. I am your host, D. Orlando Fortune. This is a show about business and authors. With the growing demand for information, entrepreneurs must learn how to turn their ideas into words on a page that bring in cash and share a unique message. This podcast brings you the strategies, tips, and bars to do just that and do it well using a book. I have a special gift for you, my listeners. You've been listening to the podcast because you're thinking about writing a book. And one of the biggest challenges I hear is, Fortune, I want to write a book, but when I sit down to do it, my brain goes blank. I have all these ideas and poof, they're gone. Well, I've heard you and I have a solution. Now, what if I told you that you could get rid of that anxiety, that you could plan out your entire book in less than an hour and do it in such a way that when you finally sit down to write the words will just flow out of you, just like they do when you're having a conversation. You could eliminate the nerves because you have a plan. Now, would that help? Your solution is the 4 Brains templates. This strategy uses both sides of the brain, the logical and the creative, to pull out your message and give you prompts that make writing as easy as answering questions. No more stressing out over the blinking cursor on the screen that seems to be mocking you, or typing out a bunch of garbage that you eventually delete. Grab your copy of the template at thoughtfortunepress.com/4brains and get your message done right the first time. Now, by this time tomorrow, you'll be amazed at how easy it was to finally get started on becoming a real author. Don't wait any longer because you didn't know how to get started. With this template, you'll finally feel confident that you'll be able to write your book. Remember, you're only one book away from your next business breakthrough. Go to thoughtfortunepress.com/4brains and get the goods now. In today's episode, we're going to talk about money and or shmoney, as today's author puts it. And I want to let you get into today's conversation because this is the topic that must be had, and it must be had in more dinner tables. If you're actually eating at a dinner table, right, together as a family. But not only that, but what I found in working with wealthy individuals, being associated with wealthy individuals or individuals who are on their way to building their wealth, is that the conversation around money is not taboo. It's normal. It's a normal part of conversation. How much money did you make over here? What are the numbers? What happened with that deal you did over there? How are you going to improve it on the next time? Okay. These conversations, what does your debt look like? How are you going to leverage your debt? What are your credit cards? What do you have available? How are you going to make this deal? What can we do now? These conversations are a normal part of the conversation as you move into like wealthier families or wealthier individuals, growing businesses. That's a normal conversation, but it's not normal for most people to have these conversations. You know, the old saying about, you don't talk about money, government, or religion as our taboo topics. And of course, with the advent of social media and so forth, the conversations around government and religion are definitely being had, but we're still shying away from that conversation about money. It's no longer taboo. It's actually something you should do. So let's get into this. I need to put that on a shirt, don't I? All right. But anyway, a few points to pay attention to here among a bunch of key points from this conversation on money. We're going to break down some of the barriers, break down some of the walls, and open up the doors to these conversations if you pay attention to what is being said in today's conversation. But see, Olga talks about the one thing responsible for 80% of business fallout and failure. And this is something that if you have not been paying attention to your business, this is what's going to happen is your business is going to have a failure. It's basically just not going to work because you haven't been paying attention to this one thing. So you want to pay attention to what that is, and then pay attention in your business. All right. She also says the way to treat your money, and the way you treat your money in personal life is the way you'll treat your money in your business. And I found this to be absolutely true. The more I focused on my finances and understand what's going on in my personal finances, the more I start paying attention to my business. Now, it does help that I do have an app that has both of my bank accounts into this one app, so I can flip between the two and see what's going on there. That does help. But not only that, but actually seeing what my expenses are in my personal life, and you'll hear this conversation, made me focus in on the more expenses in my business. It's just as the more I moved one and adjusted and made myself more aware of what's going on in my personal life, it actually affected my business. You hear more about that conversation in today's interview. And then pay attention. Two other things here to point out is that knowledge is not the problem for women's financial fitness. Okay, I want you to know what the real culprit is as far as women's financial fitness. So I have a lot of women readers, listeners here. So please pay attention there and change that dynamic for as women's financial fitness. You'll hear a powerful story that that I was reminded of as we're having this conversation. And so you don't want to just change it. You want you to change it. The other final thing here is the power of a guilt-free spending account. Yes, having a guilt-free spending account. Another thing you may look at is a book called it's called Profit First by Michalowicz. Okay, his name is Michalowicz. Okay, so you want to check that book out called Profit First, and it gives you an idea what it looks like to have actual income coming from your business and how to set that up so you have a guilt-free spending account. We don't go deep into that in today's conversation, but it's another book, another resource for you to get into, to check out how to start actually making profit from your business. It's a flip on that mindset. But for right now, let's get into Olga Kirshenbaum and your shmoney.
All right, y'all. Let's talk about some money. I like talking about money. I hope you like talking about money because we're gonna talk about some money today with the money whisperer herself. So I definitely want to welcome another artist, another author, another business and entrepreneur to today's show, Miss Olga Kirshenbaum. And before we get into talking about her story and her books, I want to go ahead and read you this quick bio because you know how we do. We want to get into the stories. We want to hear today's message. So Olga Kirshenbaum is a money whisperer and founder of Rags to Riches Consulting. Olga empowers individuals and creative leaders to make money choices with confidence so they unleash their life's full potential. In July, she released Shmoney Guide. Making money choices doesn't need to be so scary. It's focused on personal finance. Olga, welcome to TFP.
Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about money.
Excellent.
Typically, most people are not that excited to talk about money.
Oh, I love talking about money, man. My last name is Fortune. I love talking about money.
There you go.
So, Olga, is there anything else that you want to add to the bio that we didn't get covered in there?
I think that's a pretty good summation.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we're gonna start off real simple, real easy, nice little underhand toss to you, which is, what are you reading now?
Right now, I am actually about to start rereading The Go-Giver.
Go
It
give it.
is a book that I read for the first time this year when I was in a mastermind, and it really shifted my perspective on how you can have a business that you're happy with
Mhm.
and not sabotage yourself. I found I was doing that to myself a lot. And a lot of it had to do with the money talks I was having with myself. So I thought that if I got a lot of money, somehow it was going to corrupt me. Somehow I was going to become a bad person, because we kind of see these stories around us all the time. And the book made me realize that actually, if you focus on doing good
Mhm.
and don't think about the money,
Mhm.
you can actually bring more money to you with
Mhm.
the good that you're bringing to the world. So
Absolutely.
I think it was such an important read for me in 2019. I really want to get that message back in my mind for 2020 because I thought it was so important. So to start the year with that note, I think will be great.
Love it, love it. Yeah, definitely like some Go Giver, a big old bright red book.
Yeah.
I love it. And definitely have those that in the show notes. Some great principles, great ideas in there, and you touched on them right there in the beginning. Understanding that what you're giving out to the world, what you're putting out there. Again, the law of reciprocity, the
Yeah,
law of whatever you want to call it, right? The secret, whatever you want to call it. It's true. It's real. And
absolutely.
the more that we focus on it, the more that we see come returning to us. Oh, interesting idea. It just popped in my mind as we're talking about this. What are your thoughts on this? Again, this putting out there and to come back to you, as far as doing that on purpose. Like some people believe, like you're not necessarily supposed to go out and like I'm going to do this and force the world to give me this back, but out of doing it out of just because of that's what you're supposed to do, or that's who you are, or you're trying to become. What are your thoughts on that?
I really love that you brought that up. So I did an offer for Giving Tuesday this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I partnered with the Shine Foundation, which works with domestic violence survivors,
Mm-hmm.
and they partner with shelters where they go to kind of transition into their new lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they teach them financial literacy and how to get their careers back. And for me, it's such a passionate cause for me. And just financial literacy education is so important. I think so many people are missing it in the world today. And I decided to do an offer where I gave a 10% discount. Then I was like, that's not enough. I want to also match that discount
Mm.
and donate that money to the Shine Foundation. And I started promoting it on LinkedIn, and I actually saw a lot of posts that were kind of on the other side of it. People were like, don't do this Giving Tuesday thing because you should be doing it all year. That's what some people were saying. Then I saw some people say, why are you giving money? You shouldn't be giving money. You should be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So people were saying like, and I get it, there's some foundations out there that will basically use funds to cover admin stuff. I
Right.
get it.
Mm-hmm.
But also I did my due diligence. I actually know the founder of the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and I know the work that they're doing. I also have like statistics. So $96 will help 6 women for
Mm-hmm.
some time to
Mm-hmm.
get back on their feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I hear what people are saying when they say, there's always the intention and it's not about it coming back to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's really unfair to put it that way,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't not speak about a subject once I already know it. So it's like, I can't hope that reciprocity is a law of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt it myself when I did it intentionally, when I didn't do it intentionally, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a thing that happens. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really unfair to say, like, you shouldn't be doing it because you're expecting it to come back to you in some way.
Mm.
Because in some ways, if you're aware of this concept,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't ever have a clean deed, a good deed, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about the intention behind everything.
Okay.
So for example, if you are doing something and let's say you see something and you want to give money to it and you're like, I'm doing this because I can't wait for that to come back to me. I think that's where people really make
Yeah.
a mistake.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're just, for me also, I'm just that type of person. I will give money to charities. I donate sessions every month
Mm-hmm.
because it's so important to me. One, I think so many people are in the situations they are with money because It's just not something we're taught generally.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part is when I started my business, I really wanted to give back, find a way to make it a sustainable thing. I'm not saying I'm going to be the next Tom Shoes where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like donating one per one,
Forever. Yep. Mm-hmm.
but maybe I'm not there yet. But I remember telling people these ideas of how much good I wanted to do with my business. And people were basically saying it's impossible. They're saying, well, you might as well just start a nonprofit because
Mm-hmm.
you're not worried about making money. And I realized that it doesn't have to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I guess you really hit a touchy subject.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you know, it's something that I had to, you know, wrestle with myself. However, you know, there's so many ways to look at this, but in the end, I think I agree with you as far as the intent behind it. However, because we look at financial principles, as we'll get into definitely, but also specifically speaking about like taxes and so forth. Like they specifically say, you give a certain amount of money of your revenues and so forth, and we're going to give you a tax break for giving to those foundations. So I'm
Right.
literally going to give to the foundation so I can get that tax break. I absolutely going to do that. Why not? Like,
Yep.
but then on the other side of that, we think about the sowing and the seed is like, if you're telling me that I need to sow this and I'm going to return it, that's the law of nature, like you said, then how can I not practice the law of nature after I know it and say I'm literally going to sow the seed knowing it's going to come back to me at some point. Now, sometimes I think people get confused about what the reciprocation is going to look like.
Mm, that is everything. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the people who say that, you're not doing it for the right reasons, knowing that it's going to come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have this very simple vision of it where
Mm-hmm.
they think that you do this thing and you're going to get it right back. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is, the way it works, sometimes it comes back in ways that you don't even expect.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes years,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. All right. All right. Let's get back to talking about you. I just wanted to, it just kind of like came out
Yeah.
when you said was speaking about that. So tell TFP family, tell us about your business, and then of course, more importantly, why you do what you do.
Absolutely. So, what I do is really teach people how to manage money. And it varies person to person. So it can be hard to kind of niche it down and say exactly what I do. But with individuals, I work with people who have never budgeted before. I have a money mastermind called Shmoney Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically is an 8-week program for people who have never budgeted before and really just want to get a handle on things.
Mm-hmm.
I had a first run and it was amazing. I had a woman who was so beat down and ashamed of not knowing how to deal with her finances for decades and
Mm-hmm.
decades that it really affected her perception of everything. And watching her be excited to talk about money 3
Mm-hmm.
weeks in was everything to me. And then her hopping in on a call and saying, hey, I'm using mindful spending tactics. I was like, what? Who are you? You're not even the same person from
Mm-hmm.
3 weeks ago when we first spoke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also do one-on-one coaching with people. So some people want, a little bit more personalized guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really for people who have goals that don't align with their current habits. So for example, I want to save up emergency savings, but I keep spending on my credit card. I know I shouldn't, but I don't know how else to do it. Most people don't budget. So it's how do you incorporate everything? How do you pay yourself first? All those things. And then I also work with businesses, and that also varies a little bit. Sometimes it's people who own big companies. Sometimes it's just managers and companies, and sometimes it's entrepreneurs. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really helping them understand the money side of business without becoming an accountant overnight. The
Okay.
reality is
Absolutely.
you need to understand what's happening. you need to understand, especially cash flow. 80% of businesses that go out of business in the first 10 years, it is because they did not properly manage their cash. And it's such a simple thing to do if you start right from the start,
Mm-hmm.
that I just made it my passion to kind of teach people how to do it. And sometimes it's business conversations that people didn't even realize because, you're in it, you're trying to make it work. And many people tend to do it alone, especially as entrepreneurs, and
Mm-hmm.
having that person to bounce off of ideas off of really helps them kind of look at their business, even from the money side, that they just didn't think of.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, as far as when you're working with your clients, then um, do you find that as far as people that I guess the question is about the people's personal finances and their business finances. Do you tend to see that people have similar problems in each, or some people have their business stuff honed down and their personal is like atrocious, like or vice versa?
So I have to say, for the most part, the way you treat money in your personal life
Mm-hmm.
will be the way you treat money in your business life.
Mm.
And that's so I originally, when I started my business, I was just doing personal. Like I was just meeting with people. I didn't actually say I was working with managers or anything like that. Just
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm going to work with people. And then I started working with entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
who needed my help on the personal side. And
Right.
then in conversation, we would have topics come up. And I'm like, that's also about your business. And if we don't take care of that, these habits are just going to keep moving forward into your business. You're going to get
Mm-hmm.
into bad habits. And the thing with, I was an accountant for 10 years. Anything you can figure it out, you can untangle all the questions. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is how complicated it gets as time goes on. I have seen companies who will not worry about this stuff for 10 years. And then it's not just their business lives that are falling apart, it's their marriages, it's their
Mm-hmm.
relationships with their family, it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what before I even started Rags to Riches Consulting, I remember meeting with a director of a company. She had the best performance in the company, and we're meeting discussing budget to actual performance. And 6 months in, she says, Olga, I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. I don't know how
Mm.
this translates my decision making. I don't know what these numbers even mean. Yeah, there's categories here. I don't know. I don't know. If someone told me, go start another department and copy this, I'd be like, what am I copying?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I started thinking, when people go into companies, for example, you may, a lot of the time when I work with people, they'll come from not that much money when they're growing up. They have been able to reach a 6-figure salary by the time they're working,
Mm-hmm.
and they watch their parents float all their bills on their credit cards. So
Mm-hmm.
they already are lacking some of that foundation. They bring it into their personal lives, and then they go into a business. Let's say they are promoted to a director, then you are managing maybe $250,000 budget per year, and that
Mm-hmm.
is more money than you ever thought of,
Mm-hmm.
ever probably. And how do you manage that? But then who do you go to? Who do
Right.
you ask? Now you're a director. How do you ask the people around you, like, hey guys, I have no idea what a P&L is?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what was kind of the catalyst of me thinking about this, because I was like, this woman is clearly incredibly smart. She is crushing it. She is
Mm-hmm.
the star performer. And it's crazy that, like, we all assume that she gets it. And
Right.
I was also partly at fault. And I feel like I am helping the other accountants out there to make sure that the people they're working with are educated enough to have those conversations with them.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Next thing that pops into my mind here is I haven't been around a lot of female entrepreneurs, and also I just remember a story I heard earlier this week about a lady who got married when she was like in her teens.
Mm.
Um, was married for like 70 or 80 years. I forget exactly how long, 70 or 80 years. And the husband dies. So she's never
Wow.
she's never signed a check. She's never done any of that. And
Yeah.
so the kids were worried, like, Mom, what are you gonna do? Like, you've never done any of it. And she's like,
Yeah.
I got it, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. So she had to learn these principles about taking finances and paying bills, and especially with the economy has changed and everything from when she was young.
Yeah. Wow.
So my question is, like, do you see a disparity
Mm.
between women and men as far as their financial fitness, I guess you would say?
I think there's a good mix, but I do think that women are lacking the confidence more than the knowledge. So I see a lot more
Mm,
men who will talk about money confidently,
mm-hmm,
even though they may not have it all together.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Women they don't have that confidence as much unless they've been to business school. And even
Mm.
people who have been to business school, they don't feel like that's enough to give them the information. But it's interesting that you bring this up because many people don't think about this. But I may not have the right decade here, but women were not able to get bank accounts without their husband's signature until like the 50s or the 60s.
Yeah, it was around there. I
So,
remember 20s and like the 30s, they started even allowing them to go to work and everything because they needed them
right?
to while men were going off to war. So we need you to come work.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think the combination of women not working that long generally
Mhm,
and not being able to have the resources of like learning a bank account.
mhm,
How do
mhm.
you use that? How do you do this? And even to this day, I meet a lot of people. It's about to be 2020, but we are talking to people who are getting divorced,
Mhm,
and the women say, my husband did it all.
mhm,
I don't know what, I don't even know what a gallon of milk costs.
mhm,
And it's, and I don't think part of it, it's easy, right? Like
mhm,
it's easy to have someone else do it, but because there's this generational undereducation, I do believe our experiences do in some ways get passed through our DNA. So I
mhm.
think that lack of information in our history kind of makes women less confident. But overall, I think no one knows anything about money.
I can believe it. It's I still believe it's taboo, except, I
Yeah.
I have the conversations I have with my mentors. Matter of fact, the conversation I have with my mentor today in about an hour and a half. She that's one of the first things. This is my first a new mentor, and the first conversation we're having, she's like, I need to see your spreadsheet. Like, she sent me
Mm,
a spreadsheet, like I need to see where your money are, where's your money come from your business, how what are your expenses are, what are your personal expenses, then itemize all out, what are your credit cards, what are the, like, she
yeah.
wants everything. So, and I'm like, this is a business coach, but she's like, I want everything. How can we plan your
Yeah.
business to serve you if we don't know what you how much what you need? So I was doing that before I got a little this morning. I was like finishing up some things, like, goodness gracious, I didn't know that I had all these extra bills coming in. Like, it was kind of like just pay it, pay it, pay it. And now it's on paper. It's like, wait a minute. I don't know if I
Yes.
want to pay that much anymore.
Yes.
But
But you know
seeing that.
what? Seeing it, that is the power.
Mm-hmm.
Like anyone who is scared of a budget, they're scared because they're scared of putting together on paper what they're doing. They
I
are
don't want to
scared.
look at it.
I don't want to look myself in the face. That's what it is. But when people do get there, they have a sense of clarity. And even though they may find out, like you did, maybe I don't want to pay all this,
Mm-hmm.
but now you have a choice. Now you're not just trucking along and trying to get by. Now you have options, and now you can move forward making choices and decisions and deciding what is important and what's not, you know?
Yes, I love it. I love it. And it makes sense to me because I was challenged with my mastermind around this time, around December of last year. They was like, I need you to start putting your numbers in our spreadsheet. Like, so we
Yep.
have a spreadsheet for our three of us in this mastermind. And then I put them on. I was like, oh, I'll do it. I do it. I do it. I do it. And I finally did and was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to keep paying that. And I was like, I'll keep looking. I was like, and then it also was like, oh, well, this is what I need to make this year in order for me to hit my next level. So it worked. Like I hit the goals toward about 6 months into the year. I finally start consistently hitting the numbers in my business that I needed to hit. So now I got a coach that's going to be goal to take me to the next level. So I got to show her,
Exactly.
here's where we're trying to go. I need your help because I can get here, but I don't know how I'm gonna get here. I need you to help me get here. So I definitely love that. And so let's talk about what that looks like because you wrote about it, book Shmoney,
Yep.
the Shmoney Guide. Let's talk about the book. You published it earlier this year, right? In
Yes.
July. Okay. Yes. So why did you decide to publish this book first as your first book?
Yes. So I had the idea for this book for some time, and I personally wasn't ready to work on it. Part of it maybe is just like, oh, I'm too scared and it's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 6 months into my business, I started getting traction with people that were really going through stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like not overcoming a hardship. They are in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do give away sessions, but the volume was upsetting to me. Like, people would send me their budgets and I'm like, you literally can't afford me. And I can't give away everything I have for free because
Mm-hmm.
it is still a business and I need to keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
But it set such a terrible like taste in my mouth. Like, I would stay up thinking about these people. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to help this person so much. And then I was like, you know what? What can I do that will be an immediate impact? So basically, I was like, how can I boil down the very basic stuff that I cover that if someone read this, they can go and start implementing it? And that's what it is. You know, it's not very long. I think it's maybe 42 pages,
Mm-hmm.
but it is 42 pages of simple, practical stuff that you can start as soon as you're reading it. The thing is that I find funny, I also send the book out for free, even though I have it for sale, just because it's so important to get this information out there. So what I do, especially when I send it out myself, I'll follow up with people and I want to get feedback. I want to make sure that they're learning. If they have questions, I'm here to guide them, you know. And the funny thing that I started running into is that people will start reading it. It's 40 pages. So I'm like, you should get through it by now.
Yeah.
But people will take several weeks to do it because they're like, I'm actually doing my budget as I'm reading. I'm going through these steps with
Mm-hmm.
you. And even though it is 40 pages, they're really applying it to their lives. And the other thing is, there's so many financial guidance books out there that make you feel judged. I remember reading a lot of this advice that's like, you shouldn't be doing this. It's like, yeah, I know. What happens to those books? They get thrown and never looked at again because you just made someone feel so much shame about something they already have shame about. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take that factor away.
Mm.
And the feedback that I'm getting is that people aren't feeling judged. And honestly, that makes my day.
Excellent. So we got, okay, I'm gonna say right now, we got a subtle, she's talking so calm and softly. So I'm excited. I'm trying to keep and stay in character right now. But I mean, still out a simple bar that's been dropped there, y'all. A TFP family, I gotta talk to you about something simple was said here. That Olga, two things. Actually, I started to step in there earlier, but it's like, no, she's going, let it go. First off is understanding that there's certain people who are not going to be able to afford your services, and we understand that, especially those who are you TFP family. You listen to the show. You're someone who has a lot of expertise, someone who wants to charge high prices because you give great results, right? A lot of return on investments, but there's people who cannot afford what you have to offer. People cannot afford my writing.
Mm.
my book consulting. So they can't afford my writing either. I'm expensive. So you have a book out here to help them to learn how to do it themselves,
Yep.
right? And that's the same thing we just heard here. Is there's certain people that weren't able to help work with Olga, so she said, let me write a book for them so they can actually get the information. And then through getting the information, you remember, TFB family, the goal of the book is to still help them get the results, but then also for them to be a client. So as they get their business, and their budget together and start making more money, cleaning up things they need to clean up, and they start putting money in the right places. Now it's like, all right, Olga, I did the basics, take me to intermediate level, right? But
Exactly.
the other end of this is, as you said here towards the end of this piece here, you're looking at how you're going to continue helping people, right?
Yep.
And people are using your book as a workbook, and that's one of the things that people were getting away from when they're trying to make quick money with the book. So they beat around the bush with information, and then try to say, hey, go, if you really want here's the 3 things you need to do, but if you really want to know how to do them, you need to go download the course.
Yep.
Like, come on, man, just tell me what it is. Like, I mean, there's certain details. You just say, Google it. Like,
Right.
I'm gonna give you everything, but you need to Google this. I'm not breaking it all down. Like, do something. But people beat around the bush. Logan's like, no, I'm gonna help. And I ask you, TFB family, to help. Stop beating around the bush. The people who can afford you wouldn't be buying your damn book.
Yep.
They're gonna come to you.
Yeah. And the other beauty of it, I remember when I started, people were asking me, Olga, you give away so much for free.
Mm-hmm.
So much for free. How are you
Mm-hmm.
going to make any money? And I knew in theory that this is how it's going to work. But now that I have a year and a half and in my business, I see it in practice.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, especially when it comes to money, although I think this applies to any type of business, if you provide a lot of free value up front, it's going to resonate with some people,
Mm-hmm.
and they will go and do it. But the fraction of those people is actually so tiny. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a high achiever. If I set my mind to doing something, I will do it.
Mm-hmm.
But even for me to have that push to go through that process, there's a lot of internal motivation and so many factors that go into it that for people, the other thing is you're also keeping on top of mind with people. Like, oh, I read your book, I just didn't do anything with
Mm-hmm.
it, and it also takes, I think, 100 times for someone to hear something for it to really, really resonate, unless like it was such a passionate thing for them.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. I see.
And then there's like this concept of openness that I've been exploring. So if you told me anything about Tony Robbins 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that man is too woo-woo. Not for me. Now I am sending a Tony Robbins like money journaling exercise that, one, helped me, and that's why I send it to them.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm like preaching what he's preaching. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So 5 years ago, I just wasn't open. I wasn't ready to that message. And now I'm like, hello.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's timing, where the person is in their life, what they're going through, how much motivation they have. And it's like quitting smoking, really, because you're going to be changing your patterns. You're going to be changing your habits.
Mm-hmm.
And that actual change is really scary. It's not going to stick unless you really want to do it.
So we're about halfway through today's show, and I definitely want to give you a quick word from our sponsor before finishing the interview. You've been enjoying this, right? So stay tuned for after this quick little message from our sponsor, and we'll get right back to the good stuff. Today's show is sponsored by Thought Fortune Press. You probably know that if you're not an authority in your industry, nobody's hearing your message. And you may know that the number one way to build your authority is by authoring a book. What you probably don't know is that you can write the manuscript for your book in less than 4 hours. I'm D. Arlando Fortune, the lead self-publishing strategist for Thought Fortune Press, where we turn your ideas into a branded book that brings in the cash by sharing your unique message and positioning you as an authority in your industry. If you're an entrepreneur or a speaker who's thinking about already writing or want to publish your next book, but you don't want to write it, or you just want to get help getting it done, your first step is a Wealthy Author Roadmap. This is a call to help us get to the heart of what you do for your customers. Together, we'll determine how a book will help you establish more credibility in your customers' minds and make a bigger impact in their lives, while also, of course, increasing your revenues. During the call, we'll walk you through designing your book's outline and its content and create a publishing timeline that fits your goals, even if that means getting it done in as little as 90 days. What makes us different is that we know a book is only the first step into your world. Not only do we help you write the book, but we work with you on creating a signature suite of products, all from your book's one outline. We do all of this using the 5 phases of our proprietary system, the Signature Book Formula. To get started on your personalized Wealthy Author Roadmap, go to thoughtfortunepress.com and click the gold Start Here button at the top of the page. Now remember, you're only one book away. So let us at Thought Fortune Press guide you to becoming an author. Go to thoughtfortunepress.com today. Okay, so now let's get back to the tips.
Interesting. Love it. And I still hear that go-giver in there also. There it is. All right, so just talking about the last 18 months and about 6 months in, you start feeling like you need to do something for these people that are keeping you up at night, right?
Yeah.
But you published a book, and I want to know what has happened since the book has been published. What was your business looking like before that? And then after you published it, how has your business changed?
Absolutely. So when I published my book, actually, I did not work with companies. I wasn't working with business owners. It was just individuals at that point. I was really focused on that. And that was around the time where I started meeting business owners who wanted to come on as clients. And I'm like, you have a little bit of different issues here. There is like the business side of money, but then there's the personal side of money, and they're kind of different conversations. And it's almost like you got to unpack double the luggage because you have to get their personal stuff, how it ties into their business and how it's impacting it. So when I published the book, it kind of was the catalyst for me to start working with business owners.
Okay.
And I also wanted to, so I did 2 things. I added an additional service to work with individuals, which is the Shmoney Academy, the Money Mastermind. Part of that was I enjoy working with people. It's great one-on-one. I learn a lot. They learn a lot. But I believe that there's one big reason why we all have some sort of issues with money, and it's money talk stigma. Most of us grew up with the idea that it's not polite to talk about money. You don't bring it up. It's a taboo. I believe that when we don't talk about things, it becomes a scary monster, and we don't have the tools to look for those answers. So I was an accountant for 10 years, and I went to school for accounting. And when I went to school, I was like, I actually partly want to learn, what is it? We always hear companies are doing great, people are struggling. 40% of Americans actually have $400 in their savings account today to cover an emergency. The rest are going to be screwed. They're going to be putting it on credit cards, borrowing money from friends, family, whatever. And it's all going back to this money talk stigma in my eyes. They don't have the tools to look for that information. we're also super great at telling stories to ourselves
Oh
about
yeah.
other people. Like, everyone has it better than me. They have it figured out. They know what they're doing. They've got it, not me. And
Hmm.
something about money, those thoughts are exponential in our minds. Like, we think everyone else has it down with money more than us, more than anything else, at least in my conversations.
Hmm.
And that was the reason behind the Shmoney Academy. There's a beauty in learning one-on-one, but I was like, I want to start conversations. Strangers are going to be talking about money for 8 weeks, for an
Hmm.
hour on a call. Like, and I was nervous. I was like, how open are people going to be? You know,
Yeah. So how open were they?
there was crying. There was
Yeah,
there
definitely.
was so much sharing. I
Hmm.
mean, and I honestly couldn't believe it, because it wasn't just like we're all in New York City. Everyone was kind of scattered throughout the United States, and we also had a woman from Australia. And they felt like it was a safe enough space to really have honest conversations. And
Hmm.
they weren't always fun, they were painful, but they felt like they gained that confidence to talk about money, to have money talks with their spouses, with their kids. And for me, that's everything.
Mm, okay. Awesome. 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 So Olga, there's a section in the book that since we're talking about money talks, there's a section in your book where you're talking about children, money talks for children.
Yeah.
Yes. So what is this conversation? I have the 5-year-old,
Yeah.
and we have her money is put up in a little jar so she can see it, but if she's gonna buy certain things, she's gotta
Yep.
spend her own money. And like I may pay her every so often for like taking pictures of me to put on Facebook or for my website or whatever. I'll have her take pictures and I'll pay her, a couple dollars per picture.
Yeah.
So of course she tries to keep taking pictures, like any good entrepreneur.
Right.
But then I have my son who's 18, and he's actually going to school for accounting. And
Fun.
so these are different types of money talk conversations with our
Yeah.
children. But so what are your suggestions here as far as these conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the first reasons why we get into this money talk stigma, money talk taboo area is because our parents see how we act around money first time we see it.
Hmm.
And a lot of it has to do with us wanting to emulate our parents. So we're like, I want to be like my mom. I want to like, and we start saying things about money and
Hmm.
how we're thinking about it. And we typically start out seeing it as a fun thing. That tends to scare parents. And they're
Okay.
like, oh, I want my kid to be responsible. I want them to know what they're
Hmm.
doing. I want them to be frugal and blah, blah, blah. They impose a lot of these, like, their own fears.
Hmm.
And like, for me personally, that was what changed my relationship with money in part. It was my parents wanting me to be responsible.
Hmm.
So I would say, don't stress too much that they, like, obviously you have responsibility, you have bills, you can't just throw it out in the wind.
Hmm.
You have to be strategic. But I am all for still having fun. So that would be my first thing, to
Hmm.
remind them that it is possible to have fun with your money. So
Hmm.
one way to do that is to have a guilt-free savings account, maybe
Absolutely.
10%. You go and spend and you don't care. You don't care what that thing costs, because this is for you to have fun. And
Hmm.
it gives you that, it honestly just teaches you, you don't have to skimp it all away. You don't have to keep to it. And you can also, the reality is, if you have it, it's going to leave your account one way or another.
Hmm.
And if you're just always running after it, it's just not going to work. I find when we do that, it actually pushes the money away.
Hmm.
Or when we say, I just need enough money to,
Mm-hmm.
that actually caps how much money you're calling to yourself.
Okay.
So you're saying, I just need $1 million. Okay, you'll get that million, but you're going to have to really work hard for whatever else you're going to get afterwards. And I would also say, think about it as, I think, as a society, we have this terrible perception that there's a finite amount of money out there,
Oh yeah.
that we're going to run out, that there's only so much to go around. But it's just not true. Economies would not exist if that was true. It would be like a giant Ponzi scheme. The point of economy is to continue to create wealth and money. So, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. And even as I talk to people who were business majors and are in finance, and they have had bad relationships with money. And when we talk about this concept, they're like, wow, I just never thought about it this way, even though I took all these econ classes.
Right.
And the other thing I would say, focus on your relationship with money. What is your relationship with money? They will learn from that more than anything you say.
Absolutely.
So I have a client who, when we started working together, was going through a hard time, needed to move house, needed to downsize. It had been years that he was trying to pick up his business, and it was a difficult period of time. And it was affecting the children also. But as they saw, and of course, we're doing a lot of money work together, money mindset work. And as we're going through the process, he notices his children also have the similar changes in their relationship with money. So I would say, yeah, the other things are great, but focus on your relationship with money, because when you do that, your kids will learn way more from it than anything you say.
Excellent. I love that. I mean, that's a nice little bar there for our TFP family, because y'all, we already know parents who, that have kids for any amount of time know that after a certain point, you're like, your words are only doing so much. They're really gonna do what they see. They're gonna either do more of what they see from you, or they're going to go the opposite direction. So I love that
Absolutely.
you're saying work on my relationship to be a better example, not by default. Then they will have a better example for them to follow. But also having that conversation, I love that, and being able to talk to the kids about money, because my parents, it wasn't until older that we started
Yeah.
talking about money. But I'm trying to do that my daughter being, early, talking about money. This is where your money needs to go, so
Absolutely.
she's not confused about it or is not uncomfortable with it, so that when she gets to being a teen and start making more money, that she knows what to do with it without thinking
Absolutely.
it's not that big-eyed, oh my God, I made $5. Like, I had
Yeah,
$5 when I was 5, man. That's nothing.
exactly. Yeah.
Love it. All right, so let's go into the idea here is like, as you went into your writing process, you said that you didn't have business clients necessarily before you wrote the book, but you did afterwards. So I think there was some change. I'm thinking there's some type of change in your perspective or some more clarity that came from writing the book. So that's where this question is really coming from, and that is, what did you learn during the writing process, outside of like, here's how to write better sentences and stuff like that? But what did you learn about yourself, your business during the writing process?
Wow. Well, I really learned, and it's funny, I don't know, maybe I was reminded, if anything, that when I put my mind to something, I can do it. There was a point where I just felt my feet dragging with writing the book. And I was like, man, I keep talking about writing it and I still just have the outline. Like, this isn't enough. And I was like, so what do we do? Like, there's a lot of stuff we can say, but what can I do that will keep me accountable? Because the other thing is, I work from home. I push myself. I don't have anyone to come and be like, hey, what you doing? So I put it on the calendar. And I had a repeating calendar invite to myself it was a writing block. And basically, so the trick for me wasn't just having it on the calendar, because some days you just don't show up.
Right.
That it just happens. Sometimes you're like writing block. I literally can't. So what I started doing, the days that I did not show up, I would remove it from the calendar. So let's say I had 5 days of writing blocks, and it's a couple of hours per week, or some weeks it'd be an hour. And if I didn't sit down and just stare at that cursor blinking for an hour, I'd remove it. And that would, and I'm not big on shame, but it was like staring me in the face, like, you're not actually doing this. So what, it just made me show up more. So it's kind of like a game I was playing with myself, if anything. And then I think this was around the time where I started thinking of how I can apply this to businesses. And I guess I knew that I couldn't write a book for business without having the business clients. So I was like, I have to start, if I want to write something similar that business owners, because I mean, listen, I actually have done this money whispering thing since I was like 18. I did it before I became an accountant. It was in my mind, but the book didn't become a real thing until I started like having these conversations. It's almost like you have this hypothesis and you need people to actually show up and
test it on them.
Exactly. Either show you up or show up, you know?
Yeah.
So I figured, and I know I want to write a similar book for business owners, because that's another thing. It's a hot topic. People are more embarrassed to say, I don't know what a P&L is. I don't know what a balance sheet is. I don't understand how a cash flow works, because you're a business owner. You're an entrepreneur. How could you not know? These are like a lot of the stories people are telling themselves, when in reality is like, you're a designer. Why would you know? No one's expecting you to. But there's also this thinking that I have to become an accountant to fully understand this. So right now, I actually have an outline, but it's still work in progress. I definitely need a bit more business clients to get that ball rolling. But I would say time-wise, I started working with individuals in June of 2018, and I started writing the book around February. So I'd say I'm on the right track to start writing the business book in the next 3-4 months, probably.
Okay. No, makes sense. Makes sense. I get you, definitely. I like that you talked about the blocking out of time, because one of the things, as a productivity or a high performance strategist myself, I definitely work with these blocks of times, and that's part of where my strategy came from, is in writing that first book over 3 years ago. Was like, what did I do to write this? Because this is a daunting task for the majority of the world, and I was able to do it. And then when I started looking at what I was doing, I was like, I think I see a pattern here. and I put together this idea. And then in my second book, I did the same thing. I said, well, I take all these ideas. This is 2 years after the fact. So I took all those ideas that I've been teaching and trying to work and perfect and tweak and so forth as I was working and testing them on people. I was like, all right, let's put it to the test. Can I write a book in a month?
Yeah. Wow. Month.
My strategy. Yeah. Oh yeah. From beginning to end, and did it, but that's because I had that system that I can lay it out. And that's, some of that thing has its checks and balances. I do have a degree in accounting, but I haven't used it. I went into government accounting, and that just kind of destroyed my whole
government accounting.
Exactly. That's what I said. When I give my talks, right? When I tell people I tell people I was a government accountant, I said that's actually an oxymoron. I don't know if you know that government accounting is not. It's not a.
It's not even real. Okay.
I know.
Real talk. Do you know why I did not get my CPA?
Why?
I was like, I am not learning government accounting. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Never. I'm not going to work for governments doing accounting stuff. No, it ain't
No,
going to be me.
don't worry
No.
about it. They're not. There's accountants working for governments. They're not doing accounting stuff. So don't worry about it.
Don't we know?
But you know that my point being that there's this idea of having these checks and balances, but they're the book. Let's just say the game that kind of makes that simple. I don't know if you played it. That's my point is Cash Flow 101 is one of the things that helps me teach the kids how to know more about basically their income statements, and then also looking at their balance sheet, so seeing what the assets and liabilities are.
Interesting. What is it called?
Cash Flow 101.
I will look that up. No, listen, it's one of those things, cash flow, people hear it and they run. So anything to help them make it less scary, yes, please.
Oh, yeah, you got to check it out. So, I mean, you've heard Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
The Robert Kiyosaki. They created the game Cash Flow 101. That was their big product.
Oh, got
and
it.
they wrote the book to help people learn how to win the game. And then Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was the book to help people learn how to play the game, and it took off on its own.
Got it. Interesting. Good to know.
Yeah. That game, the kids love playing it, and then I try not to get in the game, but I love playing the games. So I end up getting in there. They're like, yeah, how are you winning? Like, I'm starting off with nothing, and all of a sudden by the end of the game, I have like all these properties, and I'm buying stocks and selling stocks real quick. But I learned the principles from the game, and it helps them to see those simple things. Doesn't have P&L. Definitely doesn't have P&L in there. But let's go into go ahead.
Cash flow is way more important.
That's what I was about to ask you. Okay.
Yep. So 80% of businesses that fail in the first 10 years, it has to do with poor cash management. The P&L is great. I think you should know what you're spending your money on. Absolutely. You should have someone looking at that stuff if it's not you. But knowing what your cash flow is like, knowing what your burn rate is, the fact that I speak to so many people that don't even understand that concept, the fact that, like, if you don't have financing, if you don't have revenue coming in and you have a limited amount of cash, you're going to burn through that, and you need to be prepared. That doesn't mean like you're going to leave and not continue in the business, but contingency plans, some sort of preparedness for worst case scenario, you run out of cash, you have a way to either get new investment or something. But I think the word cash flow just intimidates people so much. They're like, cash, money, run away.
No, absolutely. I absolutely get that. So in line with that, as we start moving into the last question before we go into our fun ones, idea of bookkeepers. I was on a call the other day with a wealth advisor. Love her, been following her for so many years. And she was talking about one of her clients who was paying like people, she was just giving in general. People were just paying like $200 or whatnot for a bookkeeper, but yet they really don't have any income for their business. So it's like, but you have this expense. So my question to you is, what are your feelings or your ideas, I should say, practically speaking? And let's make this, I love doing this, short-term and long-term, as far as keeping those numbers. A short-term strategy, if you're not going to be able to can afford a bookkeeping, what's a short-term strategy? And then what should I plan long-term as moving into either having an accountant or bookkeeper, or with that process, bookkeeper to accountant or whatever?
So short term, I would say there are a lot of software these days that like QuickBooks, Xero, that make it pretty simple to do your own bookkeeping. And for example, I use QuickBooks. I have very limited expenses when it comes to my business, and I have it set up on my phone. I can forward the email receipts if I have a receipt because I'm like at a restaurant or something. I can just snap a photo of it. And you can set up rules that it just codes everything the way to the place where it should go, essentially. So it
Mhm.
kind of minimizes the work that you're doing,
Right.
and all you have to do is really review,
How
which is
often?
great. I recommend
The review.
reviewing at least once a month.
Mhm.
Although I think halfway through is always a good idea in case something happened, life happens,
Yeah.
business happens,
Mhm.
and time gets away from us.
Yep.
So to find out what's going on halfway through would be good as well.
Mhm.
Long term, I think it depends what kind of business you have and the volume of transactions you have.
Mhm.
So in the beginning, I think it's great to have a bookkeeper, but it's so important to understand the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant.
Mhm. Mhm.
Bookkeepers they're the ones putting in the transactions, they're going through the day to day. They
Mhm.
tend to not be able to do as much analysis,
Mhm.
trends, tell
Mm.
you advice. And I know bookkeepers that call themselves bookkeepers and they're really accountants, and
Mhm.
vice versa. It's really about the skills that you're needing right now. Um, I would say long term, yes, if your cash is not great,
Mhm.
if you are in the positive and can actually afford a person to help you, you should.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
there is benefits outside of the money that you're sending out and what you're receiving,
Mhm.
to sort of like there's just other benefits, that peace of mind of it's taken care of and you don't have to worry about it.
Mhm.
That is everything. That
Mhm.
gives you your biggest real estate as a business owner is your brain space.
Mhm.
And to be able to free that up and say, hey, it's taken care of, it's
Absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely.
And I just realized there's a window open there and the sun has moved so much. The lighting is not
You're
fun.
we're wrapping up here. We're wrapping up here. So before we get into these last questions here,
Yeah.
the last thing is how are you using the book, leveraging the book for sort of back end product sales, whether that's speaking or coaching, or
Yeah.
how are you using the book to help you get that?
So if I am talking to someone who I know can afford my sessions,
Yep.
I forward it all the time.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, it's I treat it as a lead magnet. Whether you
Mhm.
buy it or not, it's not really, I'm not fussed. Royalties are nothing. Like, I have an independent publisher and I get pretty good royalties compared to Amazon,
Mhm.
but like unless you're selling millions and millions of books, you're not making money that's like significant.
Mhm.
So for me, it was just like it's a means to an end. It's a way to get my foot in the door with people. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, what is a money whisperer?" We start chatting. I'm like, here's a little bit of what I do. Um,
Mm.
it also helps networking with people. Sometimes people just genuinely want to learn more about you. And I'm like, here's a book that I've written. Knowing that you're a published author, people are like, ooh, definitely special. So
Mhm.
it's a great way to stand out also.
Excellent. Love that. Love that. Love that. All right. So now some of the more of the fun questions, and it's fun to me because you get to learn more about the nerdy stuff about you. Okay, because I'm a
Yes.
nerd. I get to learn the nerdy stuff. Okay, so well, this first one isn't. First one is, what do you do on your days off that most people don't know about?
Mm. Well, I visit a
I
lot of
knew you was gonna
raccoon
say.
Instagram accounts.
I knew you was gonna do that. I was like, she's gonna talk about the raccoons.
Yep. Um, if I had them in the room, I am 30 years old, but I have raccoon stuffed animals in my
Love
house.
it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Hey, I'm not mad at you. Everybody has their thing.
Right?
Um, okay, so what is your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book. I feel like it used to be the Game of Thrones series,
Mm-hmm.
but it is now The Master and Margarita. It is a
Oh no.
Russian classic. It's
Mm.
by Mikhail Bulgakov. And it's very interesting. It was actually banned in Russia for some time.
Wow.
because it was written during the communist era, and they felt like they were talking about society a little too much. What it was like, this is just talking about how life is like, and they
Mm-hmm.
didn't like it. But it also talks about religion. It actually is like parallel to the days of Pontius Pilate
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and to this time in Moscow,
Mm.
and where the devil visits them at the same time. But it's
Okay.
actually also one of the most beautiful love stories I've ever read. Like,
Oh,
I tell people, like, you want to know what love is? Read that book.
there's layers to this thing.
So many layers, just like
So,
all Russian folks.
so it was what in the Marguerite? Say that again.
The Master and Margarita.
The Master and Margarita.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Definitely have it in the show notes. And so, as far as the next thing, what is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, Milton Berle. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't see a door, build one.
Interesting. Interesting. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. I do. I do. All right. So, the last question we have here is about your message, and that's before we go into, what's next for you and how to connect with you. So,
Yeah.
take the moment right now. This is your mic. It's your camera. This is your audience. Share with TFP family. What is that message? What is the message that you must share with them?
Absolutely. I have been there. I I got my MBA, $140,000 in debt. I was fired from my last job. I bootstrapped my business. I didn't know I was going to go into business. I know what it's like to struggle with money. And the reason why my book subtitle is It Doesn't Have to Be So Scary is because when you're going through it, it can feel so scary and so alienating because of us not talking about money. And it doesn't have to be me, but talk to someone. Someone out there is qualified to help you. They will listen. I thought I'd be like the only money coach out there. Lies. There are others, but there are people out there who do what I do, and they will guide you through the process. They're not going to be the types of people that will say, I've heard people tell me that even making $200,000 a year, their financial planner tells them, you can't afford a dog. There are people out there that will actually listen to you, know what's important to you, and guide you and teach you how to make those choices. So for example, when you work with me, my goal is to get you out of my house. Like, if you come back and it's not to learn a new concept, I feel like I failed you, because
Mhm.
my goal is to teach everyone how to fish. What am I going to do after? I don't know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for being on here, Olga. Um, I know you said that you're starting a new podcast for yourself. One of the things that's next for you.
Yes, I just recently started it. I think episode 6 aired today.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, it's 9 minutes of creative wisdom where
mm-hmm,
creative leaders share their genius. We talk a little bit money, they give a little bit of their advice,
mm-hmm.
and it's just a little bit of fun. And it's 9 minutes, so it's not long. It's just a little bit of fun and also a way to get to know people. I found that podcasting is an awesome way to connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's people that you've been connected to for a long time, and just learn people's perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
I've been enjoying it a ton.
Absolutely. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. And what's the name of the podcast to put on again? 9 minutes of
Creative wisdom.
creative wisdom. Absolutely. Definitely check that out there, TFB family. And then tell TFB family where they can find your book, but then also how they can connect with you, websites and social media.
Absolutely. So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I also have a blog at ragstorichesconsulting.com.
Mhm.
I just share money insights and things that I'm working through with my clients. in 2020, I'm going to add case studies of businesses and industries just to kind of give people more of an idea of how to think and analyze business. Especially because when people talk to me about investing, things like that, they don't know where to start. And I think it'd be a great way to teach people that way. My book is on Amazon. It's on Nook, pretty much all of the places. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I have some other social media handles, but I am not handling them properly right now. So I'm just not going to send people that way yet.
Absolutely. I get it. Catch you out on LinkedIn or on the website. Pick up the book there on wherever ebooks are sold. Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
All right, Olga, I appreciate you for being on here, sharing some of your financial wisdom with us and giving us an understanding of what it looks like to actually be comfortable and to start being open to not only the financial conversation, but to life as you've learned how it continue to evolve you. So thank you so much for our conversation today. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It was a really fun conversation.
Most definitely. God bless. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You've just listened to episode number 32 of the Wealthy Author Podcast with your host, D. Orlando Fortune. That's me. And I want to give thanks to our creator. And also, I want to ask you this. Do you have any questions or comments? If you do, I want you to email them to fortune@thoughtfortunepress.com. That goes directly to me, and I will respond to your questions. And if you want to turn your ideas into a branded book that books more speaking engagements and generates more leads, go ahead and head over to thoughtfortunepress.com/4brains to grab a copy of the 4 Brains template and map out your book. It's so easy. You'll wonder why everyone hasn't written a book. That's thoughtfortunepress.com/4brains. And if you like the show, do us a favor, share, like, and join. Take a screenshot and share the episode with the hashtag Wealthy Author Podcast. Then show us how much you like us by giving us 5 stars and a review on iTunes. Then finally, join us every week by subscribing to the podcast so that you don't miss an episode. I love to hear back from you, hear your feedback. And the only way we can continue to share this, get this message out to more people who want to write books and get these other messages from these authors is if you share the podcast. So please go out, put the hashtag Wealthy Author Podcast. Please go out and give us a review. That's how iTunes spreads our episodes. And then of course, subscribe, y'all. Subscribe to the podcast. The more subscribers have, the more people are going to find out about the podcast. Also, all 3 of these things are about sharing the message. And realize, y'all, that most of my show, the majority of my show is about sharing the message of my authors. So if you want to support these authors, if you want to support just the value of books, the one book away movement, please share the post. With that being said, enough groveling. Let me wrap this up, y'all. You know what to do. You can be, you can do, you can have anything you want in this world. You just gotta believe. You can live a life of no doubt, just blessings, and we'll show you how right here, y'all. And all of part of No Doubt Nation. You know the mantra, say it loudly and do it proudly. Make life happen every day. God bless y'all. And remember, you're only one book away. T-shirts coming soon.